Today we're gonna do a webinar mainly focused on how to master the IC lower level. So me, teacher Ken, or some of the parents might know me before. It might be the first time that you see me here. I'm actually teaching grade 5 at Think Academy. Welcome everyone. And recently, lots of parents been contacting us asking about should we start preparing IC now? Or what's the best way to prepare IC? Even some third grader, fourth grader, they're trying to get in private school soon. And they notice they're going to take an exam called IC. So today we're going to go over a little bit how to prepare it and how to score high. What does IC mean? What kind of score is a good score? Well, let's get started. Okay, so here the first night. So IC stands for the Independent Schools Entrance Exam. So it has 4 levels. So the primary level is for students entering G3, G2, and G4. Today we're going to focus on the lower level, which is for students who enter G5 and 6. Well, you might be wondering, Teacher Ken, I thought you just mentioned some third graders been asking you. Yes, because lots of students, they're trying to transfer to a private school. They're trying to take the IC a little bit earlier so that they can get fully prepared. They can get a best score they can get at the time they're entering grade 4 and 5. Also, there has a middle level, upper level, but those for higher graders. You can see middle level for G7, 8, higher level is upper level is for like G9 to 12. And there are 3 seasons that you can take the exam. Right now in the 4th season, we are in October already, so you can take it one time in the 4, wait till the next season, in the winter season, you can take it again. But you cannot take like 2 or 3 times at one season. So that's why lots of parents have been asking, they should get started because applications coming up too. Application deadline mostly on January. Well, according to our research, IC exam usually is going to be a little bit harder in 4th season. Why? Because after the summer, students might take like classes, they might practice a lot of exam, and in the 4th season, the test actually getting more competitive. All the students are actually competing against each other to get a higher score. So if you want to stand out, we will actually recommend you take it in the winter, even in the spring, to avoid the summer and the fall. Because more people means more competitions. Okay, then where should I register? Actually, if you Google IC, you can just see the IC register link. And how much is it? It's actually about like 200 per time, which means it's not a cheap exam. You want to get your best shots, use the fewest time to get the best score. Okay? Alright, then why so many schools are choosing IC as a test? Okay, well, let's talk about the standardized test. What does the standardized test do? So first, the result of the standardized test indicates the school, what our students know and what they doesn't know academically. So it has outlines to clearly tell you what's going to be tested and what's not included. Why do schools want to do that? That's because the school wants to set a bar. They want to know what our students, what our children are capable of going to do. If they take some students couldn't score the bar in the school, later on they're going to have a hard time teaching the students what they are capable to learn. By then, the parents will be unhappy. If you cannot teach my children, why do you take me? And students will be unhappy too. Well, I score like 60 and you take me, and you're expecting me to do like 80, 90. That's impossible, right? So they set a standardized test to distinguish all the students, and they're taking those students who can do well. And if you still need to work on your studying habits or studying ability, then you'll be tested below the bar. Okay, so when we talk about the standardized test, many of you might have heard of IC and also another test called SSAT. Well, why do we mainly focus on IC, not SSAT? Let's take a look at it. So if you have the option to take either IC or SSAT, Think Academy actually recommend you to go for the IC. Why? There's a main difference between ISEE and SSAT. Even though both standardized tests test about reading, comprehensions, writing essays, and math, ISEE only divides the math part into two sections. So the main difference will be their score reports. ISEE is going to report 2 math section scores, and SSAT only going to report 1. And SSAT actually have 2 essay sections, 2 writing sections, which means what? If you're good at math, you want to show your strength. You want to do better in your math, and you want to do better in your math section, show more scores, which means if you are strong in math, especially in our Bay Area, lots of our Chinese students who are good at math, and also they have the potential to be good at math, you need to show your strength. You need to seek the opportunity to do well. Okay, that's why we always recommend our students to go for the ISEE. What else? After you take the test, I was just talking about the score report. How do we interpret the scores? Right here. So ISEE lower level has 4 parts. Each part will receive a score. For the math part, it mainly contains 2 sections. One, we call it quantitative reasoning, and the second part, we call it mathematics achievement. For the QR, which stands for quantitative reasoning, the test contains lots of word problems. And for the math achievements, it requires 1 or more steps calculations. Okay, we need to pay attention right here. As you see in the chart on the right side, the QR has 38 multiple choices, but the time is only 35 minutes. For the MA part, the question has 30 multiple choices. However, it only have 30 minutes, which means students only have about 1 minute per question. That includes what? That includes reading the questions, getting the key information, trying to set up the best way to calculate the answer, and also check your answer. Lots of parts that students need to done in 1 minute. So without the proper training, if students need to prepare the test by themselves, they're gonna practice a lot. And without the correct way to interpret the scores, to interpret the questions, to get the answer quickly, eliminate the wrong options quickly, students are gonna struggle finish the test in that fixed amount of time. Okay, well, let's dive into the score reports. Let's see what does each other means right here. So the ISEE usually give you 3 things. One is a raw score. We just skip about that today. Let's focus on the percentile rank and the standing. Well, what do we call the percentile rank? What does it mean? As we see here, we have the 1 to 3 percentile, 4 to 10, all the way down to 96 to 99. Why does no 100%? Well, let's talk about what does it mean. Let's say you get 95% in the percentile. It actually means you did better than 95% of students in the past 3 years. Well, getting like 100% is possible, but maybe there's some students who score perfectly before, so there's actually like no way that you can do better than 100% of students in the past 3 years. That's why the highest you can get is about 99%. And that stands for the STANY, or they come up with the name of STANY to represent the tier. Let's say you get like 95%. Then you fall into the STANY of number 8. Let's say you get 96, 97. You fall into the best STANY, which is the 9. But STANY is actually more general categories to evaluate each student's performance. Why? Let's say you and your friend go take the ISEE, you score like 98%, and your friend score 97%. The school will still see in the STANY points, you guys all get 9 points. But why do we need to have STANY even though we have the percentile? Oh, that's because the school is gonna check all your numbers. They're not only gonna check your STANY, they're also gonna check your percentile rank. They're gonna have overall evaluations on your score reports. Well, how to calculate SSAT score based on how you did in ISEE? Well, we can actually do it together right here. So The ISEE percentile rank is often compared with the SSAT, and based on how you did in ISEE, there's actually a formula to calculate how you did in SSAT. Well, let's say if you get 80%. Oops. Let's say if you get 80% in the ISEE. How to convert it into our SSAT score? We simply use 100% minus the 80% that you get. And then we divide it by 4. Oh, that's not it. And we use another 100% to get the difference. Well, 80% only math though, okay? 80% in the math in the IC lower level will actually indicate 95% in SSAT. Now you see the advantage of you getting the high score in IC. Well, lots of you might be wondering, is 80% enough to get me into like Challengers, Hackers, all those private schools? Well, let's talk about what is a good score. Right here. So we collect some information like for the top private schools in Bay Area. What kind of IC score is good enough to get in? Right here, as you see, we have the New Era School. On the top right, you see that the looking good, the green part. You actually have to score like 89% at least to be considered good. Okay, and for Hackers, the bar is a little bit lower. It's about like 84% to 99%. But still, that's very hard because remember, you're comparing with the past 3-year students. As the students get more and more competitive, your percentile rank will be like harder and harder to get higher. But what about middle school? Now the top school in the Bay Area, you have to score at least like 92% to be considered a good score. Also, for the Australia school, you actually have to score at 99%, really high score. Okay, so after we understand what is a good score, let's talk about like, how to prepare it. I think that's like the the topic that you care about the most if you come to the lecture today. Okay, so at Think Academy, we actually go through all the materials in IC math exam, and we divide it in these 5 modules. So there are numbers and operations, there are algebraic concepts, geometry, measurements, and also data and probability. Well, for the last one, you can also call it statistics too. So for all these 5 modules, you might be wondering, why you guys always like to talk about modules? Because I hear I think Academy have like module enhancements and all the long-term classes are divided into modules, 7 modules. And why do we gonna divide them in modules? That's because if you don't, then you're gonna have a bunch of math knowledge points. It's so hard to get organized. However, once after you divide all the math knowledge in modules, you can just check them one by one. After you master one, check it out, move on to the next one. Find your strengths, find your weakness. If you're good at that modules, leave it there. If you find that you're struggling with one, practice more on that modules. The reason why we divide it into modules, it's gonna help us to prepare more effective. Okay, well, how about we try some question to experience like why this is so challenging for our children and for our students. Right here, we actually get one question from the IC exam. It falls into the numbers and operation modules. Let's read question together. But remember, we only have 1 minute for this question though. So Nina's job is to put the chocolate bars into 9 boxes, and the number of chocolate bars should be the same in each box. How many chocolate bars could she have? Again, when you're reading this and you see the options, all those 4 digits number, you might be like, oh my god, where should I approach? Actually, this question is testing about the divisibility rule, especially the number 9. Well, that's how IC exams constructed. Well, if you take out one question, it might seem not that hard. If you give me like 3-5 minutes, I can definitely try all the numbers out, try all the options out, and tell you which one is divisible by 9. However, guys, remember we only have what, 1 minute, which means if you don't know the trick, or we don't know the right approach, we're not looking at the question in the fastest way to solve it, it's gonna stop us from getting the high score. Okay, enough analysis, and then let's try to solve these questions right here. Or do we want to try them one by one? No. But if you know the divisibility rule about the number 9, and we talk about it in our long-term classes and also our trial class, the magic 9, actually the number which is gonna divisible by 9 actually has the sum of the digits equals to a number that is divisible by 9. So sum of digits is divisible by 9. Okay, if you know this, well, if you summarize what you learned before, and if you pay attention and you review and you practice enough, then you can summarize this rule. After you summarize this rule and remember it, this question becomes not that hard, and it's possible to do it in 1 minute. Let's see the first one. So we have 5 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4. What is it? I have 7, 8, and 12. Okay, is 12 divisible by 9? Doesn't seem so. How about the second one? I have 6 plus 9, 15. 15 plus 2, we have 17, plus another one, we have 18. So sum of digit for the option B is 18. And 18 divided by 2, which is 9. So this is what? Divisible by 9. Which means B is the correct option. So if you know the characteristic of the divisible number of 9, you can easily solve this question within a minute. So to prepare the class, I would recommend our students do one thing, is to practice enough and then have your own takeaway about what? About the divisible rules of the common numbers. Well, what are the common numbers? How about 2? How about 3? What kind of number is divisible by 2? What kind of number is divisible by 3? What about 4? 8? 9? Well, for number 9, we already talked about it right here. Actually, for number 8, you actually have to check what? You actually have to check the last 3 digits. And for number 4, you actually have to check the last 2 digits. For number 3, you check if it's divisible, if the sum of digits is divisible by 3. And 2, well, all the even numbers is divisible by 2. Again, with 1 minute, if you want to solve this, we do need some strategy to tackle down the problem instead of trying trying to use 5,214 divided by 9 and check if we have a remainder. Okay, that's I wouldn't say it's a wrong way, but again, we have a timer there. Okay, so how about we check another question right here, the algebraic concepts, the question under the algebraic concepts modules. Again, remember we only have 1 minute, okay? Right here. Use a table to find what's the value of the question mark. Let's check out the table. We have 2 columns, input and output. Well, by reading this, we know that we need to find the relationship between the input and the output. Well, most of the time, what should we do? We might check it one by one. We might check it like 3, 9. So there must be a multiple, right? 3 times 3 equals to 9. Can it be multiplied by 3? Well, if you keep trying, you see that 5 times 3 is 15. If 5 times 3 is 15, so this is wrong. So multiply by 3 doesn't work right here. Again, what about you try it one by one? You put the options inside. Is it going to be 25? What's the relationship right here? Let's check it. 11 to 25, that is 2 times. And 2 times 11, you get 22. 22 from 25, you need to add 3. Okay. Again, we need to try the first one. 2 times 3 is 6. And 6 plus 3 is indeed 9. How about we try another one? 2 times 5 equals to 10. 10 plus 3, we get 13. Okay, seems like it worked. So we need to do what? Multiply by 2 plus 3. Well, however, guys, did you notice we actually go through a long way to get our correct answer A? If you look at the table from the top, like for 3 to 9, 5 to 13, it might take you a few minutes to solve this. Again, it's not hard, it just takes lots of time. It's going to stop you from getting high score. Well, what is it testing? How do we solve it in 1 minute? It does require some method to quickly solve the questions. Again, what did I just do? I actually plug in the number to this block and try to get the left one as close as the right one. However, this requires lots of practice to notice this. Well, if you never solved this kind of pattern before, you might just try like to multiply by 2, multiply by 3, trying to get closer to our output. However, in our long-term classes, also Think Academies, other classes like basic mathematics, we always encourage our students to look at like 2 columns individually and observe what kind of patterns we have. Right here, how about I use blue color? Well, let's check out the input column right here. From 3 to 5, we actually increase by 2. And then from 5 to 6, we actually increase by 1. From 6 to A, increase by 2. A to 11, increase by 3. Okay, after we get the increase on the input side, how about we get the increase on the output side? Let me wipe this. Again, all these methods require a long time accumulations. So without practice, without enough practice, without the summary, this is hard to notice. There's a strategy to looking at them, the 2 columns individually. So let's look at the output. From 9 to 13, we should increase by 4. From 13 to 15, we increase by 2. 15 to 19, increase by 4. Let's connect the increased number from both columns, and you will realize something amazing happened. So what do we have? First, we have 2 and 4. Next, we have 1 and 2. Next, we have 2 and 4. What did you realize? There's a pattern. For every 1 increase in the input, the output will increase by 2. Well, the relationship is twice increased. So now can you get the answer? From A to 11 increased by 3, which means on the output side, what kind of increase we're going to have? 3 times 2 equal to 6. And we just add that on top of 19 to get 25. So without trying, you can pick the option A. Again, I have to emphasize how important it is to practice enough and then get your own takeaway, summarize what you learn. Otherwise, if you keep trying and you didn't develop the habits to check the pattern individually, like by columns, it's very hard for you to like notice. You just keep trying like what I did in the beginning. Okay, how about we do one more question? How about we check the geometry and the measurement? Well, actually, in my long-term class, lots of students hate geometry. They're gonna be like, it's my nightmare. But some students actually love geometry. They prefer geometry more than numbers and calculations. Well, let's check this question. Again, I have to say, we only have 1 minute reading the question, getting the key information. Okay, let's see what do we have. Right here, the 2 sides of the rectangle are 10 and 8 centimeters. If the perimeter of a square is equal to the perimeter of the rectangle, what is the area of the square? So for this question, most of the time, what do? We first get the perimeter of the square first, of the rectangle first, of rectangle. That will equal to the width plus the length multiplied by 2. That's the way that we usually do it. And this would be 10 plus A give us 18 times 2, 36. Well, this is equal to the perimeter of the square, which means for the square, the perimeter is also 36. How do we calculate the area? For the area of the square, we do need to know its side length. But in the square, all four side lengths are going to be the same. So let's find one side length, which is going to be the perimeter divided by 4 equal ones. This is 9, and the area simply be 9 squared. Okay, this is the most common way that we will do. Again, it takes me like 2 minutes at least to get the information and then write down all the formulas. Well, can we do that in the test? Of course not. We only have what, 1 minute per question. If we go through all this to get our final answer as B, again we're gonna not have enough time for later questions, and we have to give up some to finish the test. But what is the tricks right here? How do we do it a little bit faster? Even a slight little bit faster could help us in the test. Okay, I'm gonna write it in blue. Again, all these different ways of perspective, we've been teaching our kids to, like, if you see a question, if you understand the correct way to solve it, try to see if you have any other way. Our teachers always go through like one or even more method in class so that our kids can get different perspective and they choose the way that they think is best for them. Right here, let's see, what do we know? We know the side length of a rectangle is 10 to 8. Which means what? If I add it together like this, I get the perimeter. However, for the square, do I need to calculate the perimeter of the square? We don't. We just want to know its side length. How should we do it? There's a trick. So we get the sum of 10 and 8. What is that equal to? If I divide it by 2, this was actually equal to the side length of the square. So one equation, you can get the side length of the square equals to 9. That's it. Without going through all the perimeter and then trying to calculate the h1, it's 4 times 9, and you get the perimeter is 36. No, you save all the trouble by realizing this. But again, realizing this is not that easy if you haven't practiced enough. So remember, practice is always it's always gonna be good. No, there's no saying like, oh, I got enough practice. There's never enough practice unless you summarize your own takeaway. So right here, simply again, 9 squared, we get 81. That's how we get our area. So much quicker than the method we do in the red part. Okay. Alright, so after this, after I show you all the questions, you might be wondering, okay, should I get started now? What would be the timeline? When should I get started? Well, I'll give you an example for our 2021 students. Right here, we're already in September. We're getting to September soon. Now it's still August, but we're getting to September soon. 4 semesters already started. Lots of kids will get into school. Or if you are currently in grade 4, grade 5, you're trying to get in a private middle school next year, you're probably gonna give it a first try soon, either in September or October. Register for a test, give it a first try, because honestly, you're not gonna do the best that you can do in the first try. So what I recommend you is to give it a few more try, do it like 1 time or 2 times, so that you can get the best out of you, and practice tests at home and really taking the exam are totally 2 different experience. So first, I recommend you to register, give it a first try, and then move into later November, December. You do more practices and give it a second shot. Take the ISEE in like December and January. But that would be your best shot. That would be your best try. Then you have to submit your score for applications. So I simply just give a timeline for the 2021 students who are trying to take the ISEE again to the private school. Well, I know some students are still in like grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and there's no rush. They'll be like, what if I have like 3 months? What if I have a half year? Well, no worries. We got all the plans for you. Before that, let's talk about what should our parents do? What should our kids do? What should our students do? So the parents, you probably want to save about like $200 and $1,000. Depends on how many times our kids are going to take the test. Because the test costs you about like $200 each time. Now due to COVID-19, you can do it online, you can do it at home. And also, as parents, we need to pick the proper classes and practice for our kids. We don't want to give them a book like this thick and then like go do it yourself. But we don't want to do that. That's not efficient enough for our kids. So 2 things: get some money, prepare for our kids to give it a few more tries. Also, pick the best or the proper trainings, classes, or the practice for our kids. Or what about for the students? What should they do? Use this amount of time. They should actually, follow the math modules, find their strengths and weakness, analyze what they're good at, what areas they need to improve on. So right here, pinpoint students yourselves strength and weakness based on the modules. And also, you want to practice the full length of the ISEE exam for at least like 3 to 5 times. Only doing the math is not enough, because during the real test, you're not only just going to do the math, you're also going to do the English part, you're going to do the writing. And if you only practice the math when you're taking the full length exam at home, you're not going to get the real feelings that you're going to try it in the real test. Okay, so now let's talk about the strategy for the prepared strategy for different Asian students. Right here, how should I prepare the test if you have like 2 or 3 months only for the test? Well, I would recommend you to do 4 things. The first one is to analyze your strength and weakness. I always suggest my students to do this. After they realize what's their weakest part, they can spend the most effort on that instead of repeating what they're good at. That's not a smart way to prepare for the test. Remember, it's a standardized test, so the contents, the knowledge points are limited. Again, you want to practice more. There's never enough practice for you. Practice at least like once per week and learn more test taking skills. For example, like those I just go over with you. You want to quickly eliminate the wrong choices. You want to have some strategy for a certain kind of problem. What if you are like half year? What if you're only in grade 3? You have enough time to prepare for ISEE in the future. Now you can do different things that the students only have like 2 or 3 months. Well, you're gonna go through every single modules. This is still an action before you analyze your strength and weakness. Go through every single module because you have enough time. You don't want to miss any parts that, for example, you go to the test, you don't want to be like, oh, I never see this before, I never learned about this. Or there's a situation that you want to avoid. So first thing, I will recommend you to go through every single module, every single knowledge points they're going to test on. And secondly, you're going to practice the full length exam per month, at least once per month. Well, you don't have to do it once per week, but once per month to keep your starting pace, to keep your performance levels at the best. What else? After you go through every single module, you're going to summarize. You're going to at the beginning, your summary could be like 3 to 4 pages, but you have enough time. What should you do? You should take advantage of the time and reduce all the summary page to a 1-page note. That's the most essential knowledge that you're gonna tackle down. You're gonna remember. You're gonna do it on the test. So again, at the beginning, you're gonna have lots of summary, but listen to the teacher again. Reduce it to the 1-page note. Last one. Same as those who gonna only have 2 or 3 months. Learn the test-taking skills. Learn the strategy to solve the question quickly. Because again, we only have 1 minute per question. It doesn't matter how much you learn. Without those strategy, without those test-taking skills, you're still gonna spend like at least like 2 minutes per question. Okay, so after all the action that we go over, is what should we do? Well, I know lots of our audience here already students at the Think Academy. So if you are in Think Academy already, well, does it bring you any advantage? I would say yes. Well, let's go through different situations right here. What if you're already a Think Academy student? For example, you're in our long-term class, you're in our mastery level, you're in the ACE level. Well, congrats, because that means you have a solid math foundations. You can do less than other students do. I would say mainly focus on working on your test taking skills. Also, we're gonna have the ISEE Enhancement class. Well, please take that because we're gonna teach a lot of test taking skills there. And also 1 to 2 full-length tests would be enough for you. One of my students, one of my G5 students in mastery, he actually get like 93% in math and 91% in the quantitative reasoning. That's a pretty good score. I think if he learn more, practice more test taking skills, he could go to like 96, 97% easily. What if you're in advancement? Oh, no worries. The ISEE Enhancement class, I would say this is the best class for advancement students. You guys get the math foundation. You still need to work on that. However, we're going to teach you more quicker ways to solve the question in the class. But you still need to practice at least 60 questions per modules. Well, again, never enough practice for our students. How about you're only taking basic math, or you're only going to plan to take basic math? Then you have to practice a little bit more than others. So after the IC class, you're going to go through every single modules, and for every single module, you're going to at least practice like 10 tests in total. Trying to do like 10 plus full-length tests, and then you have a better feelings about your preparations for IC lower level test. Well, what if some students, they never take anything academics class? What if I just want to study on my own? Well, that's also okay too, but that means you're also going to practice a lot more than other students. For example, you're going to do the 6-month strategy. You're going to go through every single modules. You're going to summarize your weakness, summarize your strength, and also practice at least, I would say, 15 full-length tests to improve your weakest part. So without those practice, you're going to have a hard time to find out what should you work on. Okay, well, after we go through all this, let's do a little summary. Then how do we prepare in general? So you want to start early, and you're going to have enough time to practice the test. That's why we're going to start early. We're going to practice, not only going to practice the questions, we're also going to practice our test taking skills. And also the other important step is to analyze what you're good at, analyze what you're bad at, because that's actually going to help you to spend your time more efficiently. And the third one, again, I've been emphasizing this word a lot of times today. Practice, practice, practice. And the last one, the test taking skills. Without them, again, if you take the question out without the test taking skill, you can solve it. You can solve it. I can solve it too. But without the test taking skill, 1 minute per question is actually going to stop you from getting a high score. The time limit. How to break the time limit? We need to use all these test taking skills. Different questions have different ones. Okay, well, you might be wondering what our IC enhancement class is going to cover. Again, it's going to follow the modules that we divided by. So 5 modules. So we have 6 classes to cover all these 5 modules. We're not only going to cover the hard and important math knowledge points in class, you're also going to teach the test taking skills for every single type of questions to help our students to get the correct answer as fast as possible within a minute. Sometimes you can even get the question in like 10-15 seconds if you know those strategies. Alright, again, coming next, it's gonna be our IC enhancement class. We're aiming to help our students to score 95 percentile, 96 percentile, and even higher. So we're gonna prepare classic question for each modules and more strategies on taking the test. And the registration actually opens tomorrow. And if you have the Think Academy app already, you can go to the lower school. You can see IC enhancement classes. click register, then you're good to go. Again, I would always recommend you guys not only take the class, but also give it a few shots. Taking 2 or 3 times would be a proper amount for the ISEE test, because as I say, you're not gonna do the best the first time you're gonna take the exam. All right, here we have the barcode for our APP, and that's pretty much all the materials for this webinar. I hope you guys know better about ISEE, how to prepare ISEE, and also how to arrange your time when you're preparing. Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in class and also maybe next webinar. Bye bye. Have a great weekend, guys.